All right. I'd like to call to order the West Bridgewater Public Schools School Committee meeting today, August 6th, 2020. Would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. The listing of matters are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. Please note, this meeting is being videotaped for cable. So before we go into Mr. Bodwell's fall reopening plan, I would like to bring to the attention to the committee members. I've provided you with an interim policy on COVID-related issues that was just put out by the MASC. And in this interim policy, it addresses the emergency plans related to most, if not all, of the issues that Mr. Bodwell is going to be presenting, not only tonight, but are the issues that we will be facing in the coming days and weeks. This policy is, the premise is authorizes changes to the operating protocols as needed to open and operate schools effectively from various venues and platforms. This is also subject to the guidance from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. This interim policy, through one of our school committee members' concerns, has been edited so that it is clear that this policy is not only authorizing Mr. Bodwell, but also the West Bridgewater School Committee to be able to have flexibility with scheduling meetings and the time commitment required to meet deadlines that is established by DESE. Most of these issues are dealing with the reopening plans that are going to be presented by Mr. Bodwell. It also deals with the student assignments to schools, the school calendar, class size, attendance, time on learning, grading and retention, special education, local graduation requirements, and then other exemptions that deal with particular groups of students for various reasons. I would like to have a motion to approve this interim policy on COVID-related issues as presented.
Move.
Moved
I'll second it.
and seconded. Is there any discussion on this policy?
No.
All in favor?
No.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Mr. Bodwell, you are now authorized to proceed with your fall reopening plan.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Hume, do you want to stop presenting and I'll begin?
I sure will.
Okay.
Let me just find out. Stop presenting. Okay, should be all set for you to take over.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good. Oh, why are we there? Oh, we're at the very beginning. Hold on. That was it. Nice presentation.
We're all done.
All set. Thank you, Saul.
Oh, hold on. Let me start at the. Not sure why I would. Let's go all the way up. A little preview here.
Excellent.
And if we could just hold off for 1 second, Mr. Bodwell, because Mrs. Smith just texted me she lost connection.
Okay.
She has to just give her a minute to get back on.
Absolutely. Oh.
No. Oh.
So there was a question while we wait for Molly. There was a question if we could attach the reopening plan to the chat.
This is the draft of it. So we have not, talking about this actual presentation.
Okay. Yes. I would actually, I'm wondering if we, he said yes after the fact is fine. I was just concerned that before we vote on it, I would probably rather not have it attached anywhere.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Just let me know when it's good to go.
Yeah, I haven't heard back from her, so I don't want to waste too much time, but just text her again.
Let me see if I can see if she's on.
People are still joining too, getting the doorbell. Mind. Can you all hear the doorbell? Oh,
Not anymore.
no, all right, I put my headphones in.
If just while we're waiting, if I think I'm just gonna have the members, the administration that are here. I know they're not on camera, but they can go through and introduce themselves so people know who else is here as part of somewhat of our hybrid model of a presentation.
And I believe Molly is now on, so thank you.
She said she's on by phone, not video, but yeah, she's hooked back in. Okay.
All right, so it's going to go quickly around so people can hear who is here. And then after, when we open up for questions, we'll have the video back on all the administrators.
Kathy Marble, Director of Student Services.
Tim McLaughlin, Principal at the Howard School.
Keitha Goulet, Principal at the Spring Street School and the Roselle MacDonald School. Christine Page, Principal at the Middle Senior High School.
And Brandon Cross, Vice Principal at the Middle Senior High School.
All right, excellent, thank you. So we'll go through this. We do have quite a few slides, and I think we're asking just to keep any questions to the end. So keep good notes, and we'll certainly answer any and all questions that are presented. I think the first thing is, I think we just need a good reminder of why, who we're here for, why we're here, why we're in education, and it really is for the kids. We are, if we hopefully do return to school on September 16th, it will be 187 school days, and that's just a little bit over 6 months. I know we all, the educators here, the parents and the kids, they all miss being in the school building. So I think that's just a priority for us. When we looked at began to draft out this plan, we really wanted to check some priority areas. And clearly the safety of our students and staff is paramount. From the beginning, that's
Mr.
exactly.
Barlow, could I just interrupt? I'm sorry, but I don't think you're sharing your screen when you went back to the beginning.
Oh, that's not good.
No, sorry.
Let's try it again, yeah.
There we go.
Okay. All right, so I'm assuming you did not see the lovely picture of all of our children at all different age levels. So in your imagination, I'm sure it looked, just as good. But again, that's what we're missing, and everyone's missing, from our young to our old. Again, now our priority areas, when we created the plans, the safety of our staff and our students was our primary concern. So throughout our entire plan, it's predicated on safety. The other things that we started right from the beginning was connections with students, and that started back in March, that we felt it was very important to make strong connections with our kids. The social and emotional health of our students, staff, and families. We know from being out so long, they've missed making those connections and enjoying not only the parts of the school, but also the extracurricular activities as well. A priority for us is definitely creating an academic program that is rigorous, robust, and focuses on student engagement and equity of access. And we certainly know, as we've been seeing over the past weeks and even days, we'll need to monitor everything very carefully and adjust as necessary. When we submit our plan, we know that the planning has not stopped. We know that there's a lot more to do, and we know we need to be very flexible and pivot when something comes up that we need to adjust to. Here's a list of the topics to be discussed this evening. I'm not going to read through them. We'll go through each of them, but there's a lot of things that are going to go into our plan. And our goal for tonight is to share all of that information with you. We know it's a lot, but we want to make sure you understand it because it's going to be very important for us as we return and we reopen the schools. The timeline, we've had an ongoing meetings for our Academic Continuity Planning Committee, started in the spring and over the summer. Really want to thank them for their time. We submitted actually on July 30th, so a day before, our preliminary plan was submitted, which detailed our 3 models of learning. The commissioner did say today that we should be getting feedback tomorrow or by Monday. So it's somewhat difficult to create a final plan when we're waiting for the feedback. So we hope that's coming because we're anticipating, if something is said, we want to make sure we implement it into our final plan. We have tonight's meeting. We have the comprehensive plan. They just today, the commissioner announced he's changing the date of submittal from August 10th to the 14th. So that just happened today. And as I just said, this is an ongoing process. We know our staff is scheduled to come back on August 31st, and our first day with students most likely will be in mid-September. And I'll talk about the calendar in a second. Again, I want to thank our Academic Continuity Planning Committee members, a group of parents, staff, administrators who have worked tirelessly on this. We've been fortunate enough to join people add throughout the months, and they've all added great perspective both to our general meetings and our meetings with the building principals. And I also want to thank our WBA leadership. We've had regular meetings and frequent communications with them. We've discussed safety concerns. I had a meeting recently with all 4 buildings. We scheduled a Google Meet opportunity to kind of give them a little bit of an overview, but also we want to save a lot of time for questions. Some of the questions have not yet been answered and it's ongoing. We've also taken the MTA checklist that they have given us, like most communities have, which consists of over 150 items, and we're working our way through that depending on which personnel is best to answer that question. So we'll continue to meet with the WBA to make sure our plan is a plan that they feel also will be successful. And really, we're preparing a teaching and learning plan for all students that is classroom worthy and remote ready. We know as we move into this reopening that remote will be part of it in some form or fashion. So we need to make sure things can be applicable both in the classroom and out. Want to provide a little bit of local COVID-19 data. The data you're about to see was taken from the Mass Department of Public Health, and their information taken over 2 14-day periods, starting from January 1st to the date listed on the chart. And the data, the last part will show the percent positivity in West Bridgewater has been decreasing as the number of tests have increased. So I'll just give it a second to look at that. I also did put some comparison there for the state, and obviously the state numbers in general, there's obviously more tests and more cases. But you can also look at the percent of positivity. And you can look in the second to last column. Again, this is DPH data, the number of cases in West Bridgewater, and just starting from the top and going down. August 5th, over that 2-week period, there was 1, 3, July 22nd, 3, and July 15th, 3 as well. And then you can see the number of tests that were taken or given during that time. This was recently shared with me. It's some data from Johns Hopkins University in medicine, as just updated today. And it's part of their recommendation for states that they feel should have some form of in-person learning, using a metric of 5% rate of positivity. And Massachusetts, according to their data, has a 2.88%. And so you can see it's I know it's some of the state abbreviations are pretty small, but we're within that green. We're majority of the states are in the orangey yellow, above 5%. Just want to talk about some of the models and requirements. We've been charged from the beginning. Obviously, the far left is return without restrictions. That was prior to March of last year. And then we look at a continuum of fall reopening models. Number one is an in-person learning model with the new safety standards applied. That's what we're considering a full in-person model. The hybrid model is number two, which is a mix of both in-person and remote learning. And then finally, number three is a remote learning. We'll talk about each of those models and why we think, one may be more of a fit than the others. The Massachusetts Teachers Association and the commissioner signed an MOU that agreed to school districts with 10 additional days at the start of the school year before instruction of students begins to help educators prepare for the new school year. This also then reduced the 180-day requirement for student learning down to 170 days, and it reduced the number of hours that students need to attend down to 850 for elementary and 935, from 900 and 990 for secondary. I think these days are going to be incredibly beneficial. We're excited to use them. We have ideas which we'll share in the presentation, but I think it's great because there's so much we can do in terms of safety and health and well-being, but also the use of technology and helping the teachers in the classroom. Structured learning time, which goes into that, now 935 hours for secondary. Just kind of details what that includes. Obviously, it includes the regular schedule instruction, learning activities, and other things, directed study, independent study, online courses, school to work programs, all go into the accumulation of the required time on learning for each school district. When we talk about the staff professional development days, we would run those days from Monday, August 31st to, I think it's Tuesday, September 15th. These are sampling of things. We did survey the staff to get some ideas of what they may want for trainings. We obviously feel that the health and safety COVID-related trainings are paramount. We're talking about doing a roundtable meeting. And I think what we would do is we'd try each of the buildings so we could have smaller groups and have some good Q&A time, but using our nurses, our nurse leader, members of the Board of Health, and we have both a Board of Health doctor and a school doctor. And if there are other professionals that we can bring in, that would be wonderful to sit in and let the educators ask all the questions they want to hopefully make sure they feel comfortable. And then there's also, there's a lot of planning procedures need to be done with setting up classrooms, rituals, and routines within each building. Technology ideas, Google Classroom. I'm happy to report that we had over 40 teachers sign up for a summer professional development program, learning about Google Classroom, which we're going to apply through all grade levels this year, and we're going to have the same format. So when a first grade parent and a junior parent are looking at Google Classroom, it's going to look the same. It'll be the one thing that they go to. Google Meets, which we're using now, there's a lot of things that we may not be utilizing to its full extent. The use of the hover cam. So the hover cam is actually the camera that we're using tonight. I'll explain a little bit more about that later. And then really teaching and learning in a remote and virtual instruction, engaging students in remote learning instruction, and allowing the teachers time to create lessons, implementing all the practices that they learn. So this is a mix of PD time, staff development, meetings with their departments, meeting with their grade level teams. And I do feel that those 10 days are going to be incredibly productive so they're ready to start the school year with the kids. So with the 170-day requirement, we had to look at our school calendar. And I know this will be part of the voting issue tonight, but this is just what it looks like. The numbers to the right are the professional development days or the teacher planning days. So you can look at that. We did still proposing to keep that Friday, September 4th as a no school day. With using the 10 days, we would be on Wednesday, September 16th would be the first day of school. And then following that would be the pre-K and kindergarten. And the asterisk, because I don't think it showed up on the thing, we're looking to do some transition days for our students who are new to buildings, plus new students to the school. Those will be kids coming into maybe first grade, fourth grade, seventh grade, and ninth grade. So we're trying to find some times maybe we can get kids in to prepare them as they re-enter. I'll leave that up there for a second just so you can see if there's any concerns with that schedule. Attendance and grading. Whether we are in school or whether we are remote, it's a requirement through DESE that attendance must be taken regardless, whether in person or doing the remote learning. And we must differentiate between those who are enrolled in hybrid classes or opt for a fully remote. So we're going to really be looking at that, and I'll talk a little bit more about the fully remote students later. And we are relying on parents and guardians responsible for ensuring the child attends school every day, whether it's the in-person or the remote learning. And we know for some that's going to be more difficult if we're not in school full-time, and we readily acknowledge that. I've received many emails from parents, and I want to thank our parents for their emails and their questions reaching out. We've tried to do our best with our frequently asked questions to put it out so others could also see and get the answers. But we appreciate that parents have concerns and have questions, and that's we're here to answer them for you. Grading expectations, a little bit different than we were in last spring, where we were a bit more of the pass-fail for the courses. Now we will be grading. So whether we're fully in person or we have some remote component, that we will be grading and assessing students' performance. And that'll be, again, in school and the remote learning. So this isn't time off for them. The goal is to develop a rigorous remote program where grading will definitely be part of it. And so obviously attendance. And the criteria will be consistent across the board. So there will be expectations laid out for all of our students. The first initial guidance that we got on reopening was June 25th, a very comprehensive document that they have added to and they've supplemented along the way. Again, the goal is safe return of as many students as possible to in-person learning, setting to maximize learning and to address the students' holistic needs. And again, I think including their holistic needs are their social, emotional needs. And again, part of that is getting back into more of a routine. Another focus was providing a clear set of health and safety requirements for in-person learning. The data, the commissioner has always said that we are trying to look at the data and move appropriately, and the requirement to prepare for these 3 reopening models. This is just a long list of the various information that's been provided by DESE. You can see the topics. I've shared it out to the frequently asked questions as well. There's a lot of information there for both the people on the school end and for parents, but they are very good resources, and they are modifying them quite often. I want to just present a little bit of information about our parent-teacher surveys. First of all, I want to thank our parents we had over 1,231. That's the number of responses we have, which is nearly 90% of the parents responded to the survey, which is wonderful. I know in some districts, talking to people, they didn't get a lot of responses. We got a lot of responses, and we appreciate that. I sent an email out today about follow-up surveys that we'll need to do. We're going to need to learn more if students or parents want their kids to go fully remote. We'll need to know more about bus transportation. I'll talk more about that. And technology needs within the district, both Chromebook and internet. Just to recap, because this has been sent out before, when we looked at whether parents want to go back to in-person learning, a very high percent, or 65%, want some form of in-person learning. Clearly, those are a quarter of the maybes, and then there's a percentage of no's. This gave us some good information to start with. Comfort level, this varies clearly. And we know that, both in school, going back to school, and in society, people's comfort level varies, and that's okay. We understand that, and we want to work with people who may be in that green of slightly comfortable or not comfortable at all in the purple to make them feel more comfortable. We feel that only is going to be done by educating them and providing them with information. The more information we can provide, the more comfort level there will be for anyone who's entering our building or anyone who's sending a child into our building. This has to do with the model. And again, I know this survey was sent out with not a lot of background information, but a good percentage, almost 87% of the parents that responded wanted some form of in-person learning. If you take the in-person and the hybrid together, and still understanding there's a smaller percentage of people who want remote learning. When we looked at preference, we looked at, there was certainly almost 50% wanted the model that we are moving forward with, and at a quarter wanted the AB week, and a quarter had no preference. So we went with the majority of the responses. In talking to the teachers, and this was shared to me by the Teachers Association, their feelings are at this point that a little bit over half, when this data was sent to me, are looking at a remote learning program. Technology is an important thing for us. 71% have a Chromebook or some other device, and about 30% do not. We'll be addressing those needs. I will let you know that there is a tremendous issue right now with Chromebook orders across the country, probably across the world. Shipments are tremendously delayed. We are fortunate that we have been one-to-one, so we have a good amount of Chromebooks, but it will be somewhat of an issue moving forward. I want to be honest with everyone that we may be able to stretch it thin and get everyone in, but we do have a lot of Chromebooks on order. We've used the Plymouth County CARES money to make sure we have enough, and that is for all types of technology. But it is a concern, more so for other districts than us, but it's still going to be a concern for us. So if you hear that in the news, it is affecting everyone. Internet access, we're addressing this, and we're looking, if people have no access to the internet, we're looking at purchasing hotspots that can be used so they can access any kind of remote learning. And again, social emotional well-being. We know that some are extremely concerned and quite concerned to come back to school. And again, those are the ones we need to focus on. We have to use our supports that we have within each of the buildings to make sure they feel comfortable and safe returning to school. I want to go through some guidance on the facilities and the operational protocols. When we looked at the buildings, we looked, and all buildings were measured, all classrooms measured at both 3 feet to 6 feet, and all those numbers were documented by the building principals. All spaces have been reviewed, so we looked at every single space within each of the buildings to see where we could use it for kids. Unfortunately, some of the more fun furniture, and especially in the elementaries, has to be removed because we need to increase space. So those are being removed, but they maybe not be gone for good, but then we have to make some decisions. All students, like our administrators here, are facing in the same direction in classroom. We've purchased protective barriers for small group spaces, so plexiglass barriers, and also large areas such as cafeterias, so we can increase the number of students that are in those areas. All school office areas are equipped with protective barriers. We have medical waiting rooms in the nurses area, and sometimes that extends beyond if a student is presenting any symptoms. And things like doors being propped in the hallways, classrooms, and during entry and exit to decrease the amount of touches on high touch areas. Hand washing and hand sanitizing, hand hygiene throughout the day. We will have hand sanitizer at each of the buildings available upon entry, as well as in all the classrooms and/or classroom sinks with soap. We certainly have looked and will continue to look at any outdoor spaces for educational purposes, as well as opportunities for students to provide mask breaks throughout the day. Ventilation, schools working to increase outdoor air ventilation through our HVAC systems and protocols that we established at each building. I do have some slides in a minute to talk about that. Julie Hamlin and her crew do an amazing job. I actually took a little field trip today up to the top of the middle senior high school, and that's kind of brave for me because I don't like heights, I'll be honest. But I'm up there, and they went through each of the systems. They showed me each of the, I think it's 60 filters that are in each of the rooftop units, and you'll see pictures of them, and they have dates on them when they're checked, when they're changed. There's a real process. They also can open those up to a variety of different fresh air in the building. And then when we return to school, before anyone returns to school, all the filters will be changed and they'll be set to 100% fresh air coming into the building. And we certainly looked at movement of students, cohort groups that are established at the elementary schools, and movement will be minimized throughout the day. So I think that's important because movement means more possible interactions. Here are some pictures of our trip today. You'll see the rooftop units. You'll see, if you look closely, the number of different filters. I believe they go through, as I said, 70, but I think there's 6 stations that they go through, starting with the exterior screen all the way down to the fine filtration filters. And they truly are experts. And I also want to say that although they're experts in the area, they're bringing in experts. I've asked them to do some additional testing. I've asked them to pull some reports because it is a concern. And we hear that and we understand that. And we'll do what we can to make sure people feel safe and feel comfortable. And yes, this is at the middle senior high school, which is a 6-year-old building, but they're doing the same exact thing at every building in the district. They're checking the filters, they're going through, they're checking the air condensers and so forth. Operational protocols. We are proposing that students kindergarten through grade 12 and staff and visitors and any vendors wear masks at all time, and pre-K masks are strongly encouraged. Masks cover the nose and mouth, and they will go around the student's ears, so none of the gaiters will be allowed. We feel really strongly to help keep safety within the building that as many students as possible are wearing masks. Now there are exceptions, and we will certainly deal with those on a case-by-case basis. And we also completely understand that more frequent breaks are needed for our younger kids. And the teachers are very aware of that. The administrators are very aware of that. So we're not expecting students to be keeping them on all day or even extended periods of time, especially at the younger grade levels. The protocols have been established and will continue to be worked on throughout the day. Seats are at 6 feet from one another, and we count that as nose to nose, so it's body to body. Again, the guidelines came out at 3 feet, and we said, no, we're going with 6 feet because we feel that it's certainly safer for all. I talked about the cohort groups, and the daily cleaning protocols have been developed, which include daily cleaning and disinfecting of all educational spaces, high-touch areas throughout the buildings multiple times a day by maintenance, and then the desks will be cleaned if there is student movement. So cleaning is a huge priority for everyone. And any kind of cleaning supplies have been vetted and are used and are safe to use within the building. They have the bag, I don't think they have yet the backpack sprayers that can do high volume areas quickly.
Donna, did Mark freeze?
I think he did.
Looks like Mark froze.
Yeah.
I hear a faint noise in the background. This is Jim Holden.
Hi, Jim.
How are you?
Good. Let me try to get in touch with Mr. Bodwell. I'm not sure.
You might have accidentally hit
Maybe.
you.
And
I
no,
think he's probably going to retry.
yeah. He just dropped off, so give him a minute. We were going along so well, no technical difficulties.
Looks like Christine, Miss Page is reporting in that he got kicked off and he's trying to get back in now.
Okay.
All right, why don't we just wait a moment?
All right, I'm back. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know what feel like no one's listening. No. Do you know where I left off? Was it?
It was on the screen with
You're at the end of the high
the 6
school, Mark.
feet.
All right. Tell me, can you see that now?
Yep.
Yes.
Did I get through this?
This is the one. I
Did I
think
talk about,
stopped
did I,
Yes. Yes, you did, Mark.
I talk about masks and stuff, so forth, and cleaning?
Yes, you did.
Okay. And was I right here? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So I am here. All right. So we talked about masks. If they go for outdoor recess, and we are having outdoor recess at 6 feet, masks may be removed if they're more than 6 feet. We don't want visitors. We're trying to limit visitors into the building or volunteers, and we'll establish the protocols for that. We're definitely going to visitor drop-off areas and pickup areas, but they must wear a mask when they come in. And we're going to follow all the DESE protocols, and that includes protocols for food services, cleaning, social distancing, and meals for remote learners. Technology, see, it was appropriate. I should have dropped off at this point.
Mark, we lost you again.
Oh, no.
Maybe I should use my.
Wait, you're back, Mark.
Oh, I'm back. Okay.
Yep.
I don't know
Mark,
if it's. All right.
start
Hit
over.
the arrow. Start over on technology.
Yes.
All right. I think it's because if I use the arrow, I think I'm better. All right. So we are providing all teachers, paraprofessionals, administrative assistants, and administrators laptop or Chromebooks to use during our hybrid or remote learning with a device, and that's when we're going to look if they need it. And we're trying to acquire the hotspots and software programs that will assist in both hybrid and our remote learning models. With Google platform is really what we are going with, and Mr. Collins is our person who is overseeing the management of all devices. And if there's issues, we will be putting out there so people can find where to go to get those issues solved as quickly as possible. Transportation, this is just some information about when they sent out the first report, providing us information as to the restrictions that were going to be happening on the school buses. The link is found earlier in the presentation. All riders on the bus, regardless of age, must wear a mask at all times. Windows should remain open at all times during operations unless it's not possible due to extreme weather conditions. Students will only be seated one per bench, alternating sides of each of the rows, which will allow for a maximum, approximately 3 feet of distance. Children of the same family may share a bench, and distancing requirements extend all the way to the bus stop. There'll be a lot of information we need to put out there to parents and students and hope and want them to comply with. Students will load in the back. When I first read this, I really thought they were getting in the back of the bus, but no, they're walking in the front, and the first person who's picked up will sit in the last seat at the back of the bus, and then they will move forward to minimize students walking past other riders. Students will be given assigned seats on the bus that they must sit in for both the morning and the afternoon rides, and students will be required to use hand sanitizer upon entry to the bus. I did talk to Will Lucini yesterday about these protocols, and they will have hand sanitizer available The driver will confirm the student is wearing a mask, and they will confirm that they did use the hand sanitizer as they enter. The only exception would be in the cold weather if they're wearing gloves. And we are asking parents to not send students if they're not feeling well or showing any potential symptoms. This is a diagram that shows it. Actually, the only diagram they had was a 77 passenger bus, but we use 80, our contract is for 83 passenger buses. So you can see this allows for 27 passengers, or about 33% capacity of the full bus. Our other bus, bus 5, is a small bus, and that's a capacity of 8. Clearly, that's a smaller number than we're used to. The thought is if we are not back in full time, we should be able to do that, and we'll talk more about that in a second. The bus routes are being finalized by Lucini's. Once they get us the information, we'll be sending those bus routes out to families so they can know what bus they're on, and then the survey will go out, and we're going to need a precise number of students on each run. We'll literally be counting heads. The current West Bridgewater policy allows students to reside more than 1.5 miles from the school to ride the bus. And if you do have a child that you want to ride a bus this year, it is imperative to complete the surveys so we can get accurate numbers. If we exceed limits on the runs, we'll need to look at other options. What we're going to be doing is we are encouraging families to look for other ways to get to school, walking or riding bikes. We do seem to have a decent number of kids, certainly in the nice weather, that ride bikes to school. Parent individual student drop off, and carpooling, again, with fixed cohorts that people feel safe with doing. We also know that if more people are driving to school, that will be some potential issues for pickup and drop off. I talked with the police chief today about some of those concerns, and we'll certainly be talking to our SRO about those. We'll address those issues as they come up. And we may need to look at increasing to more than the 1.5 or grade level requirements K to 6 if there's bus overcrowding issues. I say that just to put it out there. That's something we have not done in the past. I don't think it's an area we want to go to. But again, in these times, we need to at least consider all different options. Arrival and dismissal procedures. We'll work with the SRO. The SRO has gone from building to building. The police department has been wonderful in the past about sending officers out, especially the first few weeks of school. We'll look for opportunities to separate the parent drop-off and the pickup and the bus arrival. Students are required to wear masks when arriving at the school until they leave the school grounds, and they must follow social distancing as they enter or exit the building. So we will be putting markers out to help guide them as they come and go out of the building. All right, now there's some information on high need students concerned with disabilities and English language learners. Mrs. Marble is going to address this, and this is a huge part of the return to school plan, that we address the needs of our high need kids. So I'm going to pass it off to Mrs. Marble.
Thanks, Mark. The guidance asks us to prioritize the pre-K students and students with significant and complex needs. I think we all know a lot of kids struggled in the spring, and we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to see them as much as possible. So during the remote portion of the hybrid, and if we are fully remote, then we want to make sure that we can still get them in the buildings if it's safe to do so. IEPs remain in place during this time, and individual remote learning plans or notice of procedural safeguards will be used to communicate what the service deliveries will look like to the parents. The plan will emphasize structure, consistency, support, and clarify the grading. And liaisons will maintain consistent contact and provide encouragement and support throughout the duration of the remote learning period. The delivery of services. If students identified as high needs return, they will attend in person for 4 days a week instead of just the 2 days based on their last name on the hybrid, and in the remote district, and have remote district learning plan schedule. Students will be associated with grade level cohorts and included as appropriate to maintain IEP compliance and health and safety measures. And most IEP services will be provided in person, although some services may be conducted using virtual or teletherapy methodologies. The integrated preschool right now runs on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and a Tuesday, Thursday schedule, 2.5 hours AM and PM. What we're looking at is possibly maintaining 2 full-time programs instead, and run the preschool Mondays and Tuesdays and Thursdays and Fridays to align with the model. Also, if we need to cut the time to 2 hours to allow for extra cleaning, we'll do that. High needs also includes the English language learners. DESE has asked us to prioritize this. Currently, West Bridgewater has 32 EL and FEL students. Level 1 and Level 2 students will be invited to attend all 4 days of in-person learning during the hybrid model. The EL coordinator and the EL teachers will review students' reader and ELP levels and address learning gaps from the spring.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit about the in-person learning model. When we looked at this, again, we were charged to look at all 3 different models. Over the summer, I walked with the building administrators in each of the buildings and looked at all educational spaces. We completed measurements at 3 and 6 feet. Actually, we went at incrementally 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, and 6 feet. Numbers didn't change significantly sometimes, but the spaces, the occupancy varied due to room configurations. All spaces in the building were considered, and all staff were considered when we looked at if we had to build a classroom that was over the limit of 6 feet, where could we move classes or groups of students, and who would be responsible for those students? And non-traditional spaces such as outdoor learning spaces and community spaces were also considered as part of our feasibility study. This is just an average looking at the spaces in the 4 different schools. It did vary. There are also smaller educational spaces that weren't counted into the average because they may only have fit 2 or 3 kids, and that would have skewed the numbers a little bit. So we looked everywhere from stage areas to classrooms to small group spaces to see where we could put students. This is just some images of in the different buildings, what it looks like at 6 feet. We did use some of our Plymouth County CARES money for furniture. In some cases, we had room arrangements that had tables, and we felt that that was not the best fit to get the maximum number in there. So we did add some furniture to that, which we feel will be beneficial anyhow in the future. Our hybrid learning plan, just to give you a little bit of an overview, the students we're proposing are divided into 2 cohort groups alphabetically. Cohort A would be A to L and cohort B, M to Z. Students would attend small group in-person learning 2 days a week and then remote 3 days a week. Wednesdays are full virtual with remote learning with teachers. And we're going back and forth with this right now, teachers in the morning and teacher PD and department meetings, grade level meetings, and teacher prep in the afternoon. The benefit of those small groups in-person learning, and again, if you took an average, you may have 10 to 12 students rather than your 20 to 24. And the other students would be completing learning remotely. So it gives a real opportunity for a long period of time, depending on the schedule, to work with a smaller group. And we know the downside is the other ones are doing remote, but I think it's an important thing that we're getting a small group of kids in there at a time. It allows small groups to be in there. Students who are doing remote learning will be learning at the same time as the students in person learning. So in each of the plans, there is some synchronous learning going on, which I think is very beneficial. And I think part of this is we know it's a new and different way to teach. Have those 10 extra days. So part of those 10 extra days are going to be teaching and learning in that remote learning world. So that's a perfect opportunity. At the K-6 level, there'll be a dedicated remote teacher for the students. The teacher will deliver instruction, provide assistance, practice, and enrichment. At the 7 to 12 level, the middle, senior, high school, there'll be synchronous learning opportunities during instructional time, as well as teacher check-ins. And again, we'll be using Google Classroom for the different assignments. So we'll be posting information, might be videos, might be notes and assignments there in Google Classroom. This is just an image of what it looks like. And again, it's the Monday and Tuesday. So if you were in Group A, you would have in-school learning Monday and Tuesday. I think the consistency is important to students, but also for families that they know. And the Group A would be remote Thursday, Friday. Again, there was a small group. The Wednesday time when they are doing remote learning, it would be a nice opportunity, like it was in the spring, to the teacher and the kids to see everyone in their class, because we hear that concern. I don't get to see all my friends. They will get to see them during those Wednesdays. Wednesdays will also be a day we can do a deeper cleaning. I've talked to Julie Hamlin. When the teachers are doing their professional development or team meetings, their rooms most likely will be open, or we'll schedule them to be open, and then they can send their crews in. So every night will be a regular cleaning of all spaces, as well as the deep cleaning on the Wednesdays. So when I was setting up this presentation today, I thought it was actually appropriate to take a couple pictures. The first picture on your left shows the hover cam. It's like a small tower with my laptop there. That is what the setup would look like for a teacher when they're teaching both their in-person and to the remote students. The second picture has me looking out, and again, the image would be even closer, so the students wouldn't be in the picture. So when we're showing what's going on, what the teacher's doing, it'd be a much tighter shot. And as the teacher view, when I'm looking out at my class, which isn't there right now, they must all be sick or absent. I could have a laptop, a Chromebook, and I could see if you're using the Chromebook to the left, I would see those maybe 10 or 12 faces looking at me as they're learning from home. As I look over them and I see the students who are learning in person. So that's just kind of a setup of what it will look like. And then a little bit more is if I want to talk to my remote students, then I would be talking right to the hover cam. So I could say, now it's time for you to start working on this assignment, and I'm going to go work with the students in the class, and I may even shut down the hover cam for a few minutes, or they may be doing some activities where they're sharing a Google Doc back and forth, and that's what the students would see on the right when they're at home, and then they may go into breakout rooms or something like that. Now we're going to share a little bit about each of the in-person parts of the hybrid learning plan. So I'll start with Mrs. Goulet.
Great, thank you. So you'll see on the screen here, this is an example of a typical in-person learning day for the kindergarten students. It looks pretty similar to what they were doing this past year. During those academic time blocks, we have scheduled in individual classroom snack breaks and recess times and appropriate breaks as necessary. The classrooms will be where the students eat their lunches. So we will not be congregating in the cafeteria with 2 classes at a time. And we've talked extensively with Anne-Marie Grinder, our food service director, and we've come up with a plan of how we will get the students their lunches. The specialist at the Spring Street School will also be visiting the classrooms to limit the transition between classrooms and spaces. Again, it's very similar. The MacDonald school looks pretty similar to what it did this past year. Again, specialist times, we did cut it down to 30 minutes for this school year. We are going to be having our students travel to a specialist area, and this allows for additional cleaning time between groups. We've allowed for plenty of mass breaks throughout the day. Snack will be served instead of the students coming down to the cafeteria and eating as a whole grade level. Students will be able to purchase snacks from basically like a snack car or a kiosk in the hallways. Lunch will also be in the classroom, and again, we've been working with Anne-Marie Grinder to ensure that only one class is grabbing their lunches at a time. So a little bit about how this will work. Each grade level is going to have one designated remote teacher that's responsible for the online remote learning days. So in other words, if there's 5 kindergarten classrooms right now or 5 kindergarten teachers, one teacher will be designated as the remote teacher. And that's the teacher that your children will be meeting with on the computer on the days that they're remote. The other 4 teachers in kindergarten or and the other grades would be meeting with the classroom teachers, the in-person classroom teachers. And again, the snack and recess was something that they would be doing single, not together as one grade level.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Goulet. The Howard School hybrid learning schedule, that's what it would look like. We'll explain a little bit more about what those blocks are. But again, building in the snack, the recess, the mass break time, and those are going to, again, be throughout the day. Those, I think some of these planning will really be utilized during those 10 days where teachers can really sit and figure out what is best, especially once they start to live it in the building. Some important notes about the Howard School hybrid: teachers in all 3 grade levels will teach one subject, so that is a bit different. That's more of the 6th grade model, but we're trying to adapt and change to see what's best for our kids during this time. There'll be an ELA and writing teacher, an ELA and reading teacher, a math teacher, and a teacher of science and social studies. And in 6th grade, we'll still do ELA, math, science, and social studies. The homerooms are condensed into 3 classrooms at a time, so the 4th teacher each period will be able to meet with their remote learning cohorts. The schedule will vary slightly by grade based on different lunch times and different specialist times, but all class lengths will be similar, and snack will be brought to the students in the hallways outside of their homeroom. Lunch will be served in the cafeteria, 1 homeroom at a time, using reusable containers. And I think one thing that's important to note, Mrs. Goulet said it, people like Mrs. Grinder doing an outstanding job working with us to try to figure out what is best. So just to explain this a little bit more in terms of what it's going to look like when so those 4 groups, there'll be 4 cohort groups, they'll go to 3 cohort groups, and they'll have that one teacher who will be considered, they will have no kids in front, so they're basically off from teaching in person. During that time, they will teach to the students who are learning remotely. So they'll be teaching to the remote students on a schedule with no one else in the classroom with them. So I think it's a pretty ideal way to educate the kids. They're getting the attention of that teacher, and then that teacher will rotate into the other classrooms. So those students will not be moving. Again, minimizing the movement using the cohort groups. And now the middle senior high school. Where are you? I'll try to get out of the way.
So the middle senior high school, the hybrid model, while students are in school, it may look very similar aside from that half the population will be here. We felt it best for the students at home, and just to keep everyone on the same pace, that would run 4 days the same. So red day will always be on a Monday, white day will always be on a Tuesday, Thursdays will always be blue, and Fridays will always be maroon. So that way the students will know what they have those 4 days. The parents will be able to have some sort of routine. The Wednesday, we are going to alternate red days and white days, alternating weeks for those 4 blocks. So it's very similar to what we have here, because on the schedule we have when we come to school, they meet 3 times a week, 1 week, 2. So that's going to follow that same model, though they'll be kind of at the same point. You'll notice in the break that normally the whole school will go to break at one time. Clearly, we can't do that for the social distancing. So we broke break into 3 separate breaks. There'll be 2 high school break times and 1 middle school break time. I actually met with Anne Marie today, and we're going to go further and kind of look at how many classes, because she's going to put some hybrid or movable carts in the common areas around the school so we can keep kids in the same area. So we're going to take even a closer look to see how many students are going to be in certain areas so we can make sure that we have enough food for them. And we'll stagger those breaks so that, kids, we don't want students lining up in big lines, so we'll stagger it. And we know it's a work in progress. If we look at it, we feel like we might need to add a 4th break, then we'll do that. The same with lunch. We have 3 lunches. I worked with Ms. Hamlin from maintenance, and we ordered dividers for cafeteria tables. So those students will be able to sit 4 students at each cafeteria table, and they'll be able to see each other. It's not ideal. We wish all of this was not here, but we've got to make the best of it. So with 23 tables, and all the tables are at least in some a little bit more than 6 feet apart. So we can fit at the 23 tables 94 students. Then we have over space, we have the Google stairs. Hopefully the weather cooperates, and we'll have the courtyard, the cyber cafe, and also the Oakley Tower if need be. I don't think we'll need that area, but again, we want to keep all our options open. If we find that the middle school becomes a place where it might be better served to have 7th and 8th grade separate at lunch, just for, you know, most of those students buy lunches, and if the line doesn't move, then we can possibly go to a 4th lunch, which we have done back in the old schools. So we know that we may tweak those times a little bit. We kind of need to work through it, see, you know, how much time it takes to get through, because we're not going to be able to crowd in lines and so forth. Ms. Grinder is making both sides of the calf the same items, so that way the kids won't have to go to one side or the other for hot or not. So she's going to make those, which will make the line go quicker as well. I believe in talking with her, we're going to have students photocopy their school ID, so that when kids come up to the line to pay, the ladies can just scan the number and know the kids won't have to hit in a PIN number or anything, so that will alleviate any multiple touching of the keypad. So I believe that's that. You can switch my, oh, there you go. You know, we have 275 classes that run in our schedule. Out of the 275, we do have, because of the A to L and to Z split, we do have 7 classes that are larger than what we can hold in one particular classroom. I did list them, but of the classes that I looked, there's only one that runs on the same day in the same block. So in what I put down some ideas of what we're going to do with those blocks. We have the learning commons here, which we're in. We can fit up to 30 students in here at 6 feet apart, 1 student at a table. So that's going to be where that class will move to. We luck out in that 3 of the classes have a commons that are right outside their classroom. Mr. Frost set up, it fits about 10 safely 6 feet apart, actually more students are considered there with an extra staff member. We have IAs that we use, tutors, so that the overflow can go right there. So I think it'll work. And then robotics was the other one, which even before COVID, that's how that class ran. Now everyone will need to be 6 feet apart. What will the classes look like? In school, they're going to look, you know, very similar, aside from the fact that, you know, we need to get away from kids being able to group together and work together. They can do that virtually in groups online, but, you know, it'll be rigorous. It'll be as if it was before COVID. Traditional grading, attendance is required both in school and virtual. At the beginning of every class, whether the students are remote or in person, everyone will be getting attendance at that time. The teacher will be doing in person, as well as through the Google Classroom, Google Meet. Students will be paying attention to that instruction, and then they'll be breaking off. Wednesdays, we're going to be alternating, as I said. Teachers will post assignments. It's a PD day for us. And then I talked about the break and the power block. So that's pretty much it for hybrid.
All right, and we definitely want to look towards a phase 2, and I think that's important. A phase 2, and we have not set dates or deadlines to this, but we would look to alternate Wednesdays as an in-person day across the district. So that would allow us to have now 3 in-person days for Group A week 1, and then Group B would get it week 2. So again, I think it's an important way to get them into school more often. So instead of 4 out of 10 days, they would be in 5 out of 10 school days. And then remote learning plan in a hybrid model options. Parents and caregivers can choose to send a child to in-person school with the hybrid or keep them home and learning remotely. And we understand, again, through our data that we see that that is certainly what some people want to do. If a child starts the year remotely, using the district design and district run remote plan, parents can send them back at any point. But, you know, again, we want to have a little caution in that. And a survey, again, as I said earlier, we send home so we can sign up students to either the hybrid plan or the fully remote plan. And it's just encouraged for parents and students in the school to keep a good open line of communication, which I think West Bridgewater, everyone does a really good job because we want to plan what is most important and for each of our kids. We have working on designing a district-run program. Again, that is going to be a fully remote program. And they'll have daily interactions with their students. Office hours will be set up if they're, again, this is remote if we are in a hybrid program, but they're choosing not to be able to come in to school. West Bridgewater staff member will do weekly check-ins with both the student and the parent guardians to gauge student progress. Part of this is we're going to be working with our teachers on this. And that's why, again, the state, the MTA, and the commissioner gave us those 10 days. So we need to use those days most effectively to train teachers so that they have the best ability to work with this new program. We are looking at outside licenses, purchasing for an LMS system, which includes full course content. The actual company just became available yesterday, and we're investigating which LMS system is a possible good fit for the students of West Bridgewater. There is a cost associated with these LMS programs. Some are incredibly significant. Some are still significant in terms of, you know, tens of thousands of dollars. So our goal would be to run this remote learning program, again, in the hybrid, because it's different than if we're fully remote. Keep it in-house because we know we have very high quality teachers. We know we have the technology and the system to support it. If we go fully remote at any time, again, daily and class attendance will be taken. So, you know, so at the middle senior high school level, every single class, you'll have attendance taken. And like we did in the past, attendance calls will be made home if students are not signing in. There'll be full grading of all assignments. Student schedule will closely mirror the in-person schedule. So what we're looking at is not exactly, but it's nearly bell to bell. Full day instruction if we're full remote, which is significantly different. And again, I give our educators a tremendous amount of credit. I think we did a nice job. I think we did more than most districts in the spring. This is going to ramp it up. The state wants us to ramp it up. And we know that our kids deserve that. Teachers will offer office hours outside of class time. Wednesdays will become full teaching days, and all the virtual meetings will be done through Google Meets. Quickly about each of the buildings and what their remote learning models would look like.
So on the next two screens, you'll see the Spring Street School remote learning schedule as well as the Roselle MacDonald, and they are running very similar. We did our best to have our remote learning day look as similar to the in-person day as we could. And with the understanding that our youngest learners need lots of different opportunities throughout the day. So we imagine that the remote teacher would start the whole group morning check-in, kind of like a morning meeting, great time to take the attendance and see who's there for the day. The next hour or so would be broken up into some teacher-directed lessons. So the teacher is teaching live to the students sitting in front of her through the computer. And then we have the opportunity to break out into small group work sessions. One great thing that we've been able to do since March is really, you know, give professional development to our teachers so they can really understand the Google Meet platform and see all the opportunities to break out into other groups. We're going to build in natural breaks for the students that are home learning as well as we are in class, because we know they need to get up, go outside, run around. Specialist classes will also be offered, so the students who are home will be receiving their specialist lessons. Those will be posted up on Google Classroom. It will go through the rest of the day. Will be a mix of academic, you know, no more than an hour at a time. Teacher directed, small working groups, individualized instruction along with individualized lessons and activities the students will complete on their own. And again, MacDonald looks a little similar. The difference is the times, of course, as you go through the schools, the start times are a little bit different. Again, still our youngest learners who really need the opportunity to go between, just like we do in the classroom, a mix of whole group and small group instructions.
Thank you, School. And I think one of the things I want to be clear, and again, I got quite a few questions about the time for our younger kids to be on the computer. In talking to Mr. Goulet and Mr. McLaughlin, this is we'll make sure it's age appropriate. We're not expecting first graders to be on for the entire school day. There's going to be breaks built in.
So I think a point here that I haven't touched upon really yet is the importance of the Wednesday. Because the remote teacher is teaching the same group of students that have been in school, the teachers will be working on Wednesdays especially to really make sure that their lessons are aligned, and that wherever the student left off on Tuesday, the remote teacher will be able to pick up right away immediately. The great thing about the small district like West Bridgewater is we have small grade level teams and they work really well together.
All right, the Howard remote learning, it is similar in nature again. The blocks are a little bit longer. They'll afford opportunities for both whole class instruction and smaller group breakout times using Google Meets. They will go back to it from remote to the 4 sections. So that is one thing. If they do go back, they'll split those groups of 3. There'll no longer be the need for a fully remote teacher. So they'll divide them back out. And then middle senior high school.
The middle senior high school schedule looks very similar to the regular schedule we have, aside from the fact that break time maybe a little bit longer, lunch they have about 30 minutes. And then you'll see at the end of the day, this office hours. I think it's really important for students to be able to touch base with their teachers with questions. So each of the classes are run about 70 minutes during the block. And then they have those little breaks during power blocks another time where power block teachers will have, I'm going to talk with the teachers about having a Google Classroom so that they can take attendance during power block, so that kids are on. And that's another opportunity to touch base with an adult during the day for some help or guidance that they may need. Wednesday will be an alternating red and white every other week. There should be office hours at the bottom of that. That was my typo there. So in the office hours, there's a solid 30 minutes. That's a great place for some of our AP teachers to be able to touch base with students. And any student that's having difficulty be able to reach out and do a small group session with a particular teacher.
And throughout the schedule, we're looking to add in opportunities where they can do certain things such as SEL, to touch on the social emotional needs of our students, small groups with our school psychologists, maybe meeting with kids at the middle school, maybe incorporating homeroom challenge events into this. So they're getting some of those more necessary and also the fun activities. Also senior, we can look at doing senior meetings, senior groups, things like that. So we're going to utilize this schedule to the best, so all students will get good opportunities. And again, it's not only the education, the academics, but also some of the fun activities as well. I just want to quickly share with you some of our protocols for COVID-19 response. The West Bridgewater nurses met with them yesterday, and we were meeting throughout the summer to discuss procedures and protocols. They've been doing an outstanding job. We will continue to follow all guidelines from DESE, CDC, and DPH as they evolve. And I think that's important because they are evolving. So we need to look at them. We need to look at scenarios. We have charts. We have procedures to follow right now. So you could ask me something, the nurse would look at and say, if this happens, then they do this. So those things are pretty set, but that doesn't mean they may not change over time. Our focus will be on a combination of strategies that together will substantially reduce the risk of transmission. So that's part of what the nurses will be working with. And again, protocols are in place to continue updated scenarios specific to both school, bus, and community. And again, that is one of the links you can find if you have further questions on those details. It's very detailed information. And the protocols address situations in which a student or staff exhibit both either symptoms or are exposed to a positive case. So again, we will look at that, they will evaluate, and then they will make the decisions that are appropriate following the appropriate guidelines. Our next steps will continue to get updated information from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and state guidelines that we will apply to our planning. We will have continued building specific meetings to discuss plans and reopenings. Again, I thought the meetings went very well with the 4 different schools that we had. I got great information. They asked some great questions, and it is our goal to answer all of their questions. No question should go unanswered. We need to make sure that they feel comfortable. We need to make sure students and parents are comfortable coming back. We're looking at orientation and transition meetings with new students and students who are transitioning to new buildings, I mentioned earlier, and also planning for the teacher planning day, the 10 days. Again, are going to be so important for success moving forward. And we're going to ask the teachers, what do they feel they need? There's certain things that we are going to prescribe because we feel they're important to teach all of them. And there'll be other things that they will sign up for on a needs basis. So if they don't need information on Classroom or Google Meets or something like that, they'll move on to something a bit different. Have the presentation. I know that I believe the school committee has established some guidelines for questions. Questions are certainly welcome. Make sure your questions are answered. We'll do our best to answer every question we can tonight. If there's something that we don't know or we need more time, we'll get back to you. Everyone wants the best for our kids, and safety of everyone that comes into our building is the most important thing. So with that, I will pass it back off to Mrs. Sullivan, and if you want me to stop sharing, I can, my screen.
Actually, could you just advance to the next slide?
Sure, I gotta find it.
Oh,
I got,
there we go.
All right.
Yep. Okay, thank you. So before I read the statement regarding the public forum, we'd like to ask that those connected to the Google meeting who wish to speak to use the chat feature within the meeting. And if you're signed in as an alias, to please actually put your name in the chat with your question, or just simply indicate that you would wish to speak. And then we're going to go through the chat first. And then if you're connected via the phone and you wish to speak, we're going to open that up to you at the end. So we'll just go through the people who post in the chat first, and then give the people connected via the phone the opportunity to speak as well. So members of the audience wishing to address the committee may do so at this time. Audience members are reminded that personnel issues or issues that would violate student or employee confidentiality cannot be addressed during the public forum.
Great. Thank you so much, Mrs. Hume. So the first question that I believe has not been answered as I was trying to answer them as Mr. Bodwell and the other administrators were presenting is from a Scott, and if I mispronounce your name, I apologize. Lewandowski is, will Spring Street School still get dismissed at 2:30 p.m. with the Howard School kids? And are they going to ride the bus home with the Howard School kids? So, Mr. Bodwell, can you hear me?
yes. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Because I was looking at a question.
Oh, sure. Will the Spring Street School still get dismissed at 2:30 p.m. with the Howard School kids? And are they going to ride the bus home with the Howard School kids? So maybe that's.
Yep, I can answer. When I talked to Will Lucini yesterday, that was one of the questions that he had. What we decided upon was, once we look at the numbers, then we're going to make a final decision on that. It's unlike other years where we had a pretty set number that we're going to be riding. So we need to look at the numbers that are going to be riding on each from each school before we make a final decision on that. So once we get the survey results back, then we'll be putting out information.
Great, thank you. And the next question is from a Jerry Schaefert. And I believe this was already answered, but let me just reread it. At the Howard School, with the new teacher of each subject area model, will those teachers move into the classrooms while students remain in the same classroom?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I have Ms. Melissa Winchell is stating that she has some questions. So Melissa, would it be possible for you to call in? And if so, I will ask for you to hold off until the end, as we'll do the telephone calls in just a moment after the written questions.
She's on.
I'm here. I'm here on video. You want me to
Okay.
wait?
If you don't mind, could I just go through a couple of written questions in the chat?
Perfect.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We have a question from a Heather Milligan. Her question is, I have a question about temperature checks. Ms. Milligan, are you on the video or the audio? Okay. If you could type your question specifically, I'd be happy to read it for an answer, Ms. Milligan. We have another question from a Joseph Dangoya. Question, are we going to be able to meet or talk with Mrs. Marble before school start regarding the IEP management? Mrs. Marble?
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. You can email me or call the office anytime you want.
To set up a meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Can they hear me?
Can you hear, did you hear Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes, I did.
Okay, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to quickly go back to the temperature check. According to our nurses, that temperature checks will not be done as they enter. That's not part of the DESE guidelines. Again, that's according to the nurses. That is more on the parents to check that as they leave the house.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Bodwell. I have a very extensive question from a Robin Dragonetti. Thank you for your comprehensive presentation thus far. As a parent of an elementary age student and as a special educator, my primary concern is social emotional learning and supports. Thus, my question is twofold. First, can you speak to what the day-to-day looks like for our children in the hybrid model? Please be specific and transparent in regard to movement around the school from the moment they walk through the doors, examples staying in classrooms, at desks, moving between spaces, using communal spaces like the art room, lunch, etc. I believe that was presented in the slide.
I think we did answer a lot of that. I think we can certainly, she can follow up, but I know we talked about our cohort groups at the elementary level. It's more difficult to do that at the middle, senior, high school level due to the fact that they're taking multiple courses and we have different foreign languages, more languages mixed in. But we're also only talking about 4 movements a day rather than maybe at some schools they might have 8 movements. But I'll let Mrs. Goulet talk about the elementary because I think that's where the focus might have been.
Absolutely. So we are trying to minimize the movement throughout the day. At the MacDonald and Spring Street School, the children are staying pretty much self-contained for most of the day, where the specialists will be coming to the classrooms for Spring Street. At the Roselle MacDonald School, we are able to have the students move and go to their specialist classrooms to try to give them a little opportunity to, have some new surroundings. We are limiting the transitions between lunch and snack breaks as well, as we had mentioned. Snacks at the Howard School, the MacDonald School, and Spring Street School will be delivered, whether it's directly to the classroom for the younger students or in the hallway outside the classroom.
I have a question.
Okay, hold on, please.
Sure.
Mrs. Goulet, go ahead.
Thank you. So we are trying to minimize, like I said, as much movement as possible. At the Howard School, the students one classroom at a time would be going down to the lunchroom to purchase their lunches if that's what they're doing, and returning to their classroom to eat. During the movement of subject areas, the students are staying in their classrooms and the teachers are moving. So the students will not be moving through 3 or 4 classrooms a day. The classroom teachers, the ELA, the math teacher will be the ones moving.
And if I may just follow up a little bit, because I know there's some issues on the social emotional well-being. That's important, really important for us. We know that's why we'll be involving our school psychologists and other professionals to really work with kids at all different levels. We have one in each building. We're also looking to have social worker interns in each building this year, as well as potential additional staff. So it is hugely important to all of us because we know it's in the best interest of the kids. So we'll be reaching out whether we're in a hybrid or whether students are remote. That also involves reaching out with parents and making contacts with them.
All right. So the second part to this is, again, how does the district plan to support this significant decrease in natural socialization opportunities, given the inability to congregate as well as decreased physical opportunities? For example, movement breaks in and out of the classroom and the subsequent uptick in behavioral issues. Second, how does the district plan to implement social emotional learning programming and support SE needs as they arise? Are there plans to implement professional development around trauma-informed teaching as well as implementation of SE supports?
Sure. So I think the one great thing I know about especially elementary teachers is they're so flexible and are really good about thinking outside the box. So I know at the younger levels, we're already doing some movement breaks within the classroom. Go Noodle is something that your kiddos, if they're in the lower elementary school, are really familiar with. So we will definitely be tying those into the school day. The frequent breaks that we're offering, we are encouraging our teachers to have those breaks outside. It won't look the same as it had in the past, but we understand that kids need to get outside, they need to move, and we'll be doing the best we can with that. On the Wednesdays, during some of the time, we had talked about doing some drop-in, what we call drop-in Google Meets. We did some of those in the first grade over the spring, where a teacher hosts a meeting and students were able to drop in from other classrooms. So we're able to create a situation where kiddos who might not be in the same classroom will get to interact and engage. Again, it's not the same, but thinking outside the box, these are some of the things that the teachers are coming up with and planning right now.
In terms of the PD, the SE PD, that's something we have done in the past, and it's another great opportunity for use during those 10 days prior to starting school. So that's well noted, and that's a very good question.
Excellent, thank you. This next question is from Jessica Auger. If a child needs to quarantine due to an exposure or awaiting test results, will that child be able to go full remote for the 14 days?
Yes, we do have contingency in place to make sure that they're receiving the education while they're out.
Excellent, thank you. Another question from Heather Milligan. Are kids switching classrooms at the high school? I hear at the Howard they are not switching.
We are switching classrooms at the high school. There's just too many teachers that teach singleton subjects and we have mixed grades with them. Sometimes we have sophomores all the way through seniors in the same class. So we will be switching, but again, as Mr. Boswell stated, we are only moving 4 times. We're actually holding kids. The power block, we're going to keep that within the second block time frame to limit one more movement for the students. So they really will be moving 4 times a day plus to lunch. So. And I will, sorry, Mark.
Go ahead.
I will tell you that in the building, it's going to be one direction in the hallways. So we're actually going to mark the hallways like you probably saw in grocery stores and everywhere you were during COVID. So students will only be able to walk in one direction in the hallway, so you won't be having anybody passing one another.
And one additional thing is I believe that we're not using lockers. Is that correct?
Yeah, middle school, typically they need to go to their lockers. We don't allow them to bring backpacks into the classroom. Everyone's going to keep their belongings on their person. So backpacks until, we go back to, after COVID and this all passes, all students will keep their backpacks with them throughout the day. So there won't be, that will limit. So the only reason students will be leaving classrooms will be if they need to go to the bathroom, or if for some reason they're not well and want to come down to the nurse.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Mr. Hyde, Michael Hyde, stated he would like to read a statement of a teacher's preference from the, he's the West Bridgewater Educator Association representative. So Mr. Hyde, would you like to be able to do that now, please?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Bodwell, members of the school committee, thank you so much for just the presentation that was put forth. As always, I love the fact that Mr. Bodwell and the school committee is just, and West Bridgewater's focus on teachers and education. But on behalf of the West Bridgewater Education Association, I'd like to share some concerns we have going back into the building. We know face-to-face relationships are clearly the best way to educate the students in West Bridgewater, but we must prioritize safety during this pandemic. Mr. Bodwell mentioned in a survey that we had recently that around 50% of the teachers preferred a hybrid model, but it was 25% who were waiting for the presentation. After his presentation this week, 62% of the teachers feel a remote start to the school with teachers in the building would be the safest way to return to school this year for all students, families, and staff of West Bridgewater. We've shared a list of safety concerns, like you mentioned, Mr. Bodwell, including the HVAC situations in each building, available PPEs for staff and students, and procedures for a positive COVID test in any of the schools. We'll continue to work with Mr. Bodwell and the principals to safely educate and support the students of West Bridgewater. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry,
No.
I just want to thank Mr. Hyde and absolutely have my assurance that we want to work with the association to address every one of the concerns. We want the students to feel safe and the families to feel safe. We clearly want the educators to feel safe coming back. So it's our goal, it's my goal, to work with everyone to provide as much information as we need and to do what we need to do so we can hopefully work towards returning to school with as many kids as possible.
And Mr. Bodwell, Sarah Oliveria would also like to make a statement following Mr. Hyde's union statement.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the school committee, Mr. Bodwell, building principals, staff, and parents. My name is Sarah Oliveira, and I have been a member of the school community for the past 6 years as a Spanish teacher and an advisor of the National Spanish Honor Society. I come before you to discuss your plans for reopening our schools. Like our colleagues across the state, WB educators want nothing more than to return to our classrooms and provide our students with the best education possible. However, current scientific data and public health guidelines show us that it is not possible to return without hurting our community that we love so much. As educators, we have numerous questions regarding the safety of our students, including proper quarantine protocol, providing of PPE, air quality issues, and social distancing. Since those concerns remain unanswered, we feel as though it is impossible to put anybody in the building safely. The CDC's Journal of Emerging Infectious Diseases published a report on July 20th stating, quote, children between the ages of 10 and 19 have the ability to spread COVID within a household at the same rate as adults. On July 18th, the New York Times also published a report stating that other studies have suggested that the large number of contacts are school children, regardless of what age, who interact with dozens of others for a good part of the day may cancel out their small risk of infecting others. The more we understand about the virus, the clearer the dangers of a hybrid reopening become. Some of us, even in a hybrid setting, will still have class sizes of 18 to 20 students. I ask you, how are your children or the WB staff safe? We side with science and are asking you to please do the same. As a union, we support a remote start, as Mr. Hyde said, that can transform into hybrid through a phased-in approach, as the state of Massachusetts has done. We need effective established protocols for when, not if, a student or staff becomes infected with COVID. We need to ensure the quality of our air systems in all buildings. We need to address PPE, social distancing protocol, and so many other issues. 62% of this town's educators voted for a remote start due to the lack of answers and the concerns of our safety that we have just a few short weeks before the proposed start of school. Please note that this very meeting is virtual for most, as it has not been deemed safe for the public to attend in person. If it is acceptable for us in a hybrid model, for half of our student body to attend with all staff, masked for 7 hours a day, then why is this meeting not open for all to attend? I think the answer is obvious. It's because it's not yet safe. When we reopen our schools, we want to keep them open. Rushing this process and putting lives at risk will inevitably force a shutdown. This would only disrupt the learning process even further and quite possibly result in the illness or death of staff members or students. Again, I ask, is it really truly worth the risk? We know that we will never have 100% agreement on the right way to do this, but it's clear to me that we can't afford to get this wrong. We acknowledge that the remote learning in the spring was far from perfect and requires much more structure and planning, something that the dedicated teachers of this district are ready and willing to do. My statements here are meant to protect your children and my own, and I refuse to be complicit in rushing your children and our staff into an unsafe condition. I, along with many fellow educators, implore you to consider a remote start, phasing into hybrid to start our school year to ensure the safety and well-being of all in our school buildings. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. So I would just like to make a few comments to your statement. So thank you for your time in preparing that. I believe Mr. Bodwell did address the concerns regarding the air issue and the filter system. And specifically with the high school, it's a brand new building. And fortunately, we're able to reap the benefits of that, not only with the HVAC system, but also all of the concerns that have been raised regarding the air circulation, kind of, promoting the whole COVID spread and so forth. You had made another point about the PPE. I believe that with the implementation of all of the guidelines and the recommendations from the DPH and the CDC and obviously DESE, with the kids wearing masks 6 feet apart, that we're implementing all of the recommendations that we possibly have data right now to support. I would ask that you and obviously the other teachers, after Mr. Bodwell's presentation tonight, with all of this data, all of this information, the specific information regarding the hybrid models for each building, with transportation, with the food, with snacks, with lunches and all of that, that you go back and you review all of that information and see if your position remains unchanged. I believe Mr. Bodwell and the whole administration provided a lot of information that may not have been considered when you drafted that statement.
If I may, just for 1 second follow up, Ms. Sullivan, I have reached out to Mrs. Hamlin, head of maintenance and building and grounds, and I've asked her for several things. I've asked her to perform an air quality test. I've asked to see past results as well. She's told me that all systems in the district will be pulling in as much fresh air, which is a part of the DESE, into each of the buildings. And I've asked her for confirmation through an outside source that all of our systems are working properly and as designed, with the filters throughout all 4 of the buildings. And I know a lot of the concerns were raised through in the MTA document, the MTA checklist, and she has been working on that. She just received that a couple of days ago. I know she has checked a lot of the boxes. It is my goal to check all of the boxes, and so we can have discussions and share that information with the educators so that, again, they feel comfortable. I appreciate them raising all of these concerns. And again, it is my goal to address every single one of these concerns moving forward. And I know we also did address some of the concerns about the protocols for COVID-related tests. I have a copy here of the spreadsheet, the flow chart, when someone tests positive, what the response will be. And again, that is primarily going to be handled through our school nurse. So we're willing and able and want to address every single one of the concerns for safety.
Anybody else want to be heard with respect to the 2 union statements? Okay, I'm going to go forward on some other questions. Jerry Schaefer, as a follow-up to the social emotional part of Robin's question with the Howard students having so many teachers, How will they establish the quote bond so many students need with a teacher, especially those who may experience anxiety?
It's a really good question. It's different. At the Howard School, now they will be going at this point, if it were with this model, to having 4 different teachers. They did switch for 2 of the classes, so we are definitely extending that to a different model. And again, we're trying to find the best compromise or mix between building that bond and having those 4 teachers. Again, I think they will build a bond. It is going to look different. And unfortunately, our whole way is going to have to look at it a little bit differently. I think they'll still work hard to build that bond with each of the kids, but it definitely will look a little bit different.
Okay, the next question from a Quinton Lone. Are children entering 7th grade buying Chromebooks from the high school, or are we utilizing personal Chromebooks? And I believe Mr. Bodwell already addressed that by saying that we have orders out there, and the delay, like every district, is somewhat out of our hands.
Yes, that's correct. We did part of our budgeting process for this year. Chromebooks were ordered. I believe Mr. Collins, he may be on here. I don't know when if he is, he can let us know when he put those orders in, but it may have been around July 1st or even before that. The problem will be the supply. We may be asking parents to help us out in the interim if they're not in, and that's what part of the survey will give us that information.
Okay. This is a question from a Monique Avila. Again, I apologize to everyone if I mispronounce your names. Can you explain the procedures for the staff entering the school? Do they have a self-checker every morning?
Is a question, are they checking themselves, or are they asking if there's going to be a staff member like the nurse checking?
Could you answer both questions?
Sure. They will not be checked in by a medical professional when they enter the building. It's not part of the guidelines. Certainly, they're encouraged if they're not feeling well to see our school nurse or medical professional, but we will not be checking temperatures similar to when we won't be checking student temperatures. If we see signs or symptoms that someone may be sick, certainly we would have a discussion, but there will be no check. It's really on the individual to self-report that.
I can probably add to that as well. I know that the staff during the ESY program used exclusionary methods that Ms. Diedrichson set up, and I believe it'll be the same way in the fall. It was a form that they had to fill out, and you know, do you have a temperature? They're out there, the regular, how are you feeling? Have you been traveling questions?
And that's in the ESY program, that was done both for the students
Yes.
and for the staff.
Yes.
I hope that helps answer the question.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Monique Avila. Again, maybe I got that better. Monique, can you explain the contact tracing once someone is identified as positive? Have you hired professionals to do this tracing?
In talking with both Ms. Diedrichson, one of our nurses, and Rob Casper, our Board of Health agent today, they have protocols in place. What will happen is when a student comes down to see the nurse, if they are deemed to show or symptoms or signs of COVID-related illness, then that's when the tracing starts. In that, they will fill out the form, they will have it on file. They'll reach out to the teachers to find out who was in that classroom at that time, who they were with during that day, and then it'll work between the school nurse, I believe, and the Board of Health. So there will be precision in knowing where that student was that day, and there'll be a lot of paperwork associated with it so they can track it. That's to the best of my knowledge. I think our medical professionals, our nurses could answer that probably more thoroughly, but I think that hopefully gives you an overview.
Okay. There's also a question. So the, I guess, username is Illusion Mist. I would like to have the actual name. I would rather not use the email names. So if Illusion Mist could just let me know what their name is, that would be great. And I'll then read your question. In the meantime, I'd like to go back to Melissa Winchell. You had several questions you wanted to talk about or ask. Would you like to have that opportunity now?
Yes, and I think some of them I can reserve for Mrs. Marble and Mr. Bodwell, so I'm happy to do that. My first question is just with regards to staffing. So two staffing issues. First of all, I know that in your original school budget that you had originally proposed, but that did not fully pass through the town, there had been a line item for an additional social worker at the middle senior high school this year. The town did not pass that budget, and so I know there was some conversation about whether that would happen or not. So my first question about funding is, given that the funds, extra funds that we're getting, for example, through the Plymouth Cares Fund, are we going to be able to hire any additional mental health support, such as a social worker?
Good question. Yes, we are investigating that. I have a call out to Tom O'Brien, our Plymouth County Treasurer, to discuss that further. I did send him an email a while back asking some specific information. So that, looking at staffing and using some of the Plymouth County Cares money, which West Bridgewater got a significant amount. In total, it'll be about $700,000. That money it certainly goes to the town first, and we have to show reimbursement for that money. So we are looking into that. We have also, hopefully, we're waiting to hear back about the social worker interns for 3 of the buildings, but they'll be utilized in all 4 of the buildings. So yes, it is part of our planning. I think we're waiting to see where we're going in terms of a model prior to making that decision.
Okay. My second question is just with regards for special education staffing. I know we've hired, I believe, a 0.5 at the Howard for the 5th grade, which I was glad to hear. But, you know, a special ed staff is already a skeleton crew, if I can say so, in this district. And with some of us, you know, needing to keep our children at home because of medical complications, and others of us being hybrid, and, you know, some students going 4 days a week if they have significant needs. What is the plan in terms of the additional special ed staffing that's certainly going to be needed, not just for making sure that we get all of the minutes in our IEP that were guaranteed by law, but then also to compensate for the time that was missed in the spring? I know the state kind of kicked the can down the road a little bit, talking about compensatory services. They said their information will be out a little later this month, but I assume they're going to say that you all are going to be responsible for compensatory services. And my estimation is that you're going to owe about 70% or so of time that was missed in the spring to students on IEP. So what's the plan for additional SPED staff?
Sure.
I am in communication with the collaboratives in our area, and they are asking us about our needs currently. They're talking about doing some telehealth. We're in the very beginning stages of that, so I do have on staff. We do recognize that we do need more people, though, because of the various learning models that we're going to be faced with. But it's a process, and we see it, and we're moving forward with it. I wish I had all your answers, but I definitely do not right now.
And again, similar to the SEL, or we're looking at what our needs are with what model we're in. And I think there's still time for staffing.
I'm not sure about that. I mean, we're about a month and a week out from the new start date of school. And so, you know, I know Mr. Michael Lazek had made quite an effort to try to bring more SPED staff into the district instead of using outside service providers. And I think I speak for most SPED parents when I say that would be our preference. We would like our kids to have ongoing relationships with our SPED providers who are part of our district, who understand our district and understand our families and our children. So I would just like to put that out there for the school committee's attention and for your attention as well in terms of the administration. I think it's going to be really important. I'd also just like to comment on 2 things, and then I'll send out an email, and I'm happy to post the questions as well on Inclusion Matters for public viewing if people want to know. what I'm asking from you all, but the service plans, the state's been clear that every student on an IEP deserves two things. First, they deserve every minute of their IEP as written for this school year. That was not necessarily the wording that was used during the special ed presentation tonight, so I want to hear a guarantee that our students are going to receive all of their service delivery. And secondly, and more importantly, I heard Mrs. Marble talk about, being available for parents for meetings, which is wonderful. And she is truly available, and I give her so much credit. I can't imagine the number of phone calls. However, you've got now 10 days. And I think given that the state is requiring, and this is kind of the second point, the state's saying that every kiddo on an IEP, every student should get an individualized, updated service plan, because even if their service delivery grid is not changing in terms of minutes, it is changing in terms of how those services are being delivered, whether they're being delivered in a hybrid model, a remote model, in person, whatever it is. So I'd like to know what the plan is for how the special ed staff, who's writing those updated service plans. I don't think we should have to reach out to Mrs. Marble to meet as parents about those plans. The state's been pretty clear that it's the SPED department's responsibility to reach out to us and to collaborate with families to create those new plans. So when can our parents expect phone calls, and when will those meetings be scheduled?
Melissa, thank you for asking those questions. Again, first, I think we need to vote on the plan. I need to know if we're remote, if we're hybrid. I also feel as if that I need to include the related service providers, liaisons. I wish I could have them tomorrow for you. That's just not going to happen. You come into work and you think you're going one way, and then you come out of work and you go in the other. There's a lot of guidelines that are coming each day, all day, and we're trying to follow them. I do not want you to worry, or any student, any parent of a special ed student. We're trying to cross our T's and dot our I's, and not because we're just trying to cover ourselves, because we really do care about the students. We want what's best for them. I don't have a specific date for the plans. I'd like it to be a collaborative effort, and I do want to cover every point on the IEP.
So we're not sure then that we'll, as parents, that we'll have our students, our kids' service plans by the start of school. Is that what you're saying?
By September 16th?
Yes.
Yes, no, I'm shooting for that date, yes. I thought you meant it tomorrow, but no.
That's, I mean, we're talking, I think 41 days before that. So I think we have time to work on this. There's been a lot going on in this district. There's a lot going on with families. So I think the work is in progress. So Mrs. Marble said it will be done. I'm sure it will. I just want to go back quickly just to another point when you mentioned the district and looking for additional staffing. And again, you had mentioned it, but I just want to remind everyone that the district did put in their budget for an additional $70,000 to hire a person, and that was cut by the town. So the district is certainly prioritizing, and we appreciate the budget the town gives us. We always do. But again, that was that's priority area, and I've made that clear that that will be something that, in terms of the budget, we'll move forward with. Mention that's also something that we have been having discussions in the interim using Plymouth County Cares money.
Right. Yes, no, I'm sorry. That's what I meant to say as well, that you all had asked for it and the town said no. Okay, I'm just concerned because I know other districts, as they're rolling out their 3 plans to DESE, first of all, we haven't seen those plans, so I'd love for those to be highly visible to the public here in West Bridgewater. I don't know if you have plans to post them somewhere, but I'm surprised that. I'm sorry.
They're due to DESE by the 14th of August.
And they'll be posted, they're due the 10th, I thought?
Nope, the commissioner spoke today and he pushed it to the 14th, or he said they could be the 17th.
And they'll be posted where?
On the website.
Okay, on our school site, or are you talking about DESE's site?
Our school site, and they'll be sent to DESE. I'm not sure if they post them there as well.
Okay, I think my concern is that as we're writing these 3 plans, we've known we've needed to write these 3 plans for some time now. I'm surprised that there's not a special ed plan attached to each of those models. I understand that no one's voted, although, it sounds to me from what I'm hearing from the school committee that your minds are already made up, unfortunately. But but I'm still just surprised that, we know we have to give full services to every student in the district. We've got a couple hundred students on IEPs in this district. And I'm surprised that there hasn't been more attention paid to what the special ed service plans would look like given each individual model. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. So yeah, I'm going to be watching just to see what service plan template you'll be using. I don't know if you're planning to use the state's or create our own. We'd really like to see that before you start your service planning, so that we're sure that it's clear to parents and takes into account all the kinds of issues that are going to arise with the service plan delivery models, and also how you're going to classify high needs special ed students. There's 2 different criteria that have been issued by the state at this point, the PL3, which is older, and then the updated July 9th memo. And there's a little bit of conflict there. I know some districts in the state are going above and beyond what the state is recommending. And I'm going to be looking to see what our district does. Are you just kind of meeting bare minimum? Are you going above and beyond? Because I think it just needs to be really transparent to the parents in this district where we're at in terms of special ed. And then of course with the compensatory services too. So finally, I just want to say, as an educator and someone who's married to an educator, I would urge, since you have not voted tonight, that you vote to start remotely. We can always move to a hybrid model as we watch the numbers and as hopefully things get better. I know remote is not ideal. We're choosing between all very unideal options, but I agree with the teachers who've spoken tonight that we need to pay attention to science and prioritize the health of our teachers and our students. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Thank you. I'd like to just kind of read some statements that were in this chat section. Again, this is from Robin Dragonetti. In response to Mr. Hyde's statement, I would also like to see a second survey of parent preferences now that clear plans have been presented. It is very difficult to check a box of remote, hybrid, or in-person without the details of each plan. I feel that results of the original survey were inaccurate given that parents only had traditional in-person school experience to compare with the experience of crisis remote in the spring. Another statement by Jerry Schaefer. Thank you, Mr. Hyde and Ms. Oliveria. I appreciate your statements and concerns for safety of everyone. I agree with 100% remote start. I have a few questions from a member stating their name is Sped Watch. And again, I would just like to have a formal first and last name. But the questions were, is the nurse leader present at the meeting? I'm not sure. Ms. Dietrichson, are you here?
She's not. We actually do not have a nurse leader at this time. The position has been posted and we're taking applications.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Sorry for that. And then also from Spedwatch, they were asking, is the Howard School principal present at this meeting?
He was. He had a prior commitment that he had to leave for. Is there a specific question for him?
There wasn't, but it's just a question of whether the Howard School principal was present.
He was here for some of the meeting earlier, yes.
Yep, I actually saw him behind you when you started. And then I have from a Bonnie Campbell, is it the hope to have the students back in school full-time this school year if there is a treatment or vaccine?
I think as the data, shows, as we get more information, we'll certainly look at, movement. I believe that our plans are going to promote movement either way, and that's why we're looking at all 3 models. That's why we did the measurements and so forth. So I would say that we'll absolutely look at movement both ways.
And from Sarah Warnock, if a symptomatic student quarantines but is not tested, Their COVID status remains unknown. How will contact tracing be handled for situations where students are presumed COVID positive without being tested? Will their classroom contacts be notified?
If you give me a second. Again, this is all in the DESE guidelines, which have been shared. The question was if someone is symptomatic, is the question,
Yes.
and is not tested, the student will,
Yes.
yep.
Correct,
Then the
yes.
student remains home in self-isolation for 14 days.
Will their classroom contacts be notified?
From looking at this, no. Again, I'm looking at this. I am not I would defer to our school nurse, but I'm just going off the reference guide.
Okay. This is from Heather Milligan. For those children that are allowed more in-person learning as in the 4 days, such as those on IEPs, the 2 additional days they will be going, will this be all review and learning the same thing they learned the other 2 days, since the new group of students they are with most, this is their first in-school learning? I was told they will use these 2 days to utilize their special ed plans and time to be pulled for whatever is in their plan.
Absolutely. So I'll speak to that's Mrs. Goulet. There might be some times where the content that's being taught in the classroom may be review. For some students that may be beneficial. We will be looking to provide those services outside the classroom during those times that the student, like the second session, the second 2 days that the student's in school. So if the student was receiving OT, speech, APE, counseling, those kind of outside services, we would be looking to schedule those on those days so that the student benefits from those and not getting, having to sit through another lesson, the exact same thing again.
This is a two-part question from, again, Sped Watch, which again, I would like to have your full name, please. One, is there a special education plan for the reopening? And then what is the criteria for 2 days in person or 4 days? It doesn't matter. All services are required in any of the 3 plans.
Is that all the question is? Is there more to it?
That's it. Yep.
Yes, all services will be offered. What we're using for the criteria for the 2-day and 4-day is basically the service delivery grid and the amount of time that's spent outside of the regular ed classroom. I've also spoken to the liaisons, and once we pick the plan and move forward, I'll be reaching out to parents.
Okay, thank you. And yes, this is from Mrs. Graziano, Mary Graziano. I apologize, I did skip over it. I was rewinding back for your initial comment. And Mary Graziano had stated, Mrs. Sullivan, these concerns were voiced by staff after the initial school meeting with Mr. Bodwell this past week. And then Mary Graziano continued with, please share my comments with your fellow school committee members. Teachers are concerned with too many unknowns. I think the answer to not notifying students by Mrs. Warnock is very telling.
Again, we're following the DESE guidelines in that, and I'm not really sure the specifics of too many unknowns.
Okay. And this is from Melissa Winchell. Mr. Bodwell mentioned the district is looking at 2 LMSs. Are these LMSs with full course content? And if so, does this mean students who are remote will not be taught by a WB educator, but by the LMS?
So there's actually a few different options. What we received latest for the latest guidance, again, this week was the names of the companies. They're listed in, again, the guidance, which I don't have it up here, but there are options 4 and options 5. Option 4 is a more prescriptive courses. For example, one of the companies is Tekka Academy, and I believe the other one is Greenfield Academy. In those courses, which are much more expensive, they are taught by their educators, so they would be solely responsible for teaching them. Option 5 is there are 2 choices. One is Edgenuity, and the other is a program out of Florida that would be, they would provide the content, but the schools would provide the teachers for that. So that's what we're reviewing. Again, that information just came out yesterday. We've got to fill out a survey by tomorrow if we want further information. Both programs have a cost. There are pros and cons to both, but I think we're also looking at what we have for staff capability, what we have for the technology capability within our own district, along with training. We have a number of staff who've been trained in online learning, and we could look at more training to prepare staff if we go in-house. So those are the 2 types of different LMS systems. So I hope that answered the question.
And another question from Melissa Winchell. Kathy, you said you are using the service delivery grid to determine 4-day. At what percentage qualifies for 4-day?
I'm not using the high needs percentage was 75% outside of the regular ed classroom, but West Bridgewater, based on our data that we have in our EastMed program, didn't really give us enough children in that category, so we went further into the C grid. I didn't use percentage for that. I just looked at what their related services were and what their needs were. Does that answer your question?
And then I have, again, from SpedWatch has asked the question, is the facilities director present to speak more to the HVAC systems?
No. No.
Excuse
No.
me? Who's saying no? I'm sorry. Mr.
No,
Bodwell?
No, I will respond. No, that wasn't me, but she is not here. If there are specific questions for her, I can certainly take note of them and answer them. So if that person wants to respond with specific questions, I did lay out some information, but if there's specific questions, please let us know.
Thank you. And then I have, again, Melissa Winchell. With due respect, Mr. Bodwell, my spouse has experience with Ingenuity. There is not an educator teaching. It is self-contained. The WB teacher simply unlocks or customizes the coursework. That is all that the educator does.
Okay. There are 2. I'm sorry. There are 2 different versions. I think we talk about 2 different things. We do some courses through Edgenuity now at the middle senior high school, which are more taught by them. This is a little bit different. And again, this information simply came out yesterday with the 2 different programs. So we're still looking into it.
Okay, thank you. So I believe I have either read statements or questions from everyone in the chat. If there is now anyone on the computer or the phone that would like to be heard, I would ask that you, again, remind you to identify yourself with your formal first and last name.
So it's Jim Holden.
Hi, Jim.
How are you?
I'm well. What's up?
I'd like to address something to Mark. Mark, how are you?
Good, thank you.
This has been an interesting meeting this evening, and I can only sympathize with all of you as to what you're facing to allow our children and to teachers to come back to school. I wish you all the luck in the world and hope you can make the right decision. My opinion is you shouldn't come back until Thanksgiving, but that's just my opinion. I am deeply concerned with your comments about the air systems, not only in the high school, which we know are relatively new, but as well as the Roselle, the Howard, and the Spring Street schools. I know for a fact that Spring Street has had in the past issues along with the Howard. And I also know that we all know that the high school has had issues with being able to do climate control based on the system that we have. I hope sincerely that what you're stating is going to be true. As the husband of a wife who teaches in the system, I am deeply concerned for her health. And I know you guys understand that. So please, when you do vote, keep in mind, I'm not the only one who's going to be concerned about the age of some of these teachers and the possibilities of what could or could not happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. I will say I do believe, and again, I am not by any means an expert in HVAC systems, but I think there may be I believe there's a difference between climate control and air quality. But I would certainly defer that to someone with much more expertise than me. And again, that's partly going back to what I said earlier. I've asked Mrs. Hamlin to get reports and to have new testing done on the air quality coming into each of the buildings, as well as to certify that they're working as designed.
Well, I can only suggest to you, as a general contractor who's familiar with some of these systems, that when you do find out what your numbers are, that you make them available to the public so that they can be relieved on a given day, both in the mornings and in the afternoons, based on empty capacity and full capacity after a full day of school. You're going to need to know this, especially when you're going to be running school for 2 days in a row, empty for a day, and then running for 2 more in a row. Only God knows what could or could not be flowing in the air. And again, I emphasize, I feel sorry that, you guys are facing this problem, but God forbid if you have to face other problems with people getting sick.
All right, thank you, Mr. Holden. I have Scott Lewandowski, who has a question he would like to speak on his voice for it, he says. So, Mr. Lewandowski, are you ready?
Yes, I am. I have a question for Mark.
Go ahead.
I work for Lucene. I'm helping Will do the routing. I just want to make sure, what's the capacity on bus 5 for that?
I believe he told me yesterday it was 8.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Mark.
You're welcome. And he said that was at 31%, I believe.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have a question that they would like to be heard? All right. So at this time, Mr. Bodwell, I would like to be very clear on what we are voting on. Are we voting on the 3 plans as presented? Or are we voting on, are we voting on which plan we want to have implemented with your presentation to DESE?
So what we've been told is we're still presenting all information for all 3 plans on the now August 14th comprehensive plan. What I would like is that I think moving forward to assist us in our planning, because I know we have up until the 31st with our teachers and the 16th for our students to prioritize our plans moving forward. It would be my hope to approve a hybrid model plan with the information out there that if data changes, if things change, then the school committee will reevaluate that. I think it's important that we know things are changing, but I think that to proceed forward, And I also know that there's another school committee meeting scheduled for the 24th, I believe.
It is.
So I mean, again, I think as you plan, I think you need to find a direction. I think we found that the in-person right now is not a fit for us. I think we are working hard to get some students in. And again, I'll repeat it, that our goal is to make sure everyone is safe. If there comes a, if we have data in whether it's, HVAC, facilities, there's things like that, this conversation could have been like, let's try to go in person. And I think I don't feel that is in our best interest at this time with the data we have, with the social distancing guidelines and so forth. But I think moving forward with the hybrid, unless things change, that would be my recommendation.
So if, would we need to vote though on, I believe that we would need to also vote on the remote plan. I know it's moving forward and it's very liquid and it's developing as the hybrid, but in order for us to vote on that, to submit it to DESE so that in the event the hybrid plan is approved, then we would be able to implement the remote in the event that the DESE, has everyone go remote. So wouldn't we need that plan approved now as well? So it is like an emergency backup?
Yes, I think so. I mean, that is our, if we decide, or if the state decides, the next logical step would be to go to a fully remote.
Okay. At this time, I would like to make a motion to approve the hybrid plan and the remote plan as presented. And I would like to see if there's any discussion with the committee members.
So I have a question. In this plan, it doesn't have any type of criteria from the state at this time of what we would do. They're looking for us to present all three plans and then also present our recommendation for which plan we believe we should start with as of now. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So can we do that in two separate votes? Can we vote on the three plans and say the three plans as presented? Obviously, the in-person isn't really a plan presented because we know how to do that. But then the hybrid plan and the remote plan, we're voting on the presentation saying that those three plans being presented have all been developed well.
That would make more sense. I just discounted the in-person plan just moving forward. So it could go, I mean, again, this isn't something that we're looking into October and November. This is really like very near future than that before we can make any kind of determination on what's going to happen. No one knows what's going to happen, but I feel that with all of this data, with all of the evidence that Mr. Bodwell has gathered and analyzed and reviewed with the administration and with parents and with school committee members, that he is putting forward the recommendation for a hybrid plan very responsibly, very transparently. So I would make the motion to approve. It would be a 2-vote to approve all three plans as presented. And then a second motion, we'll probably get to that in a minute. So I'd like to make a motion for all three plans to be as presented.
So I'll second that.
Moved and second. Any discussion on that part of the vote? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. I would like to make a second motion to approve the hybrid plan as presented for implementation in the West Bridgewater school system.
Second.
Moved, second. Any discussion?
I just wanted to say, with the understanding that if the data changes as said, or things change, we can have another meeting to reconsider. So it's just as what's been presented as of today, we'll move forward with starting with the hybrid option.
Yes, and that
Right.
was at the beginning of this meeting why we approved that policy from MASC, because that's where we have the ability to have a scheduled meeting, maybe not within the Rogers rules for timeframes because of the pandemic.
Okay.
And I'd also like to make a suggestion, Mr. Bodwell, it was addressed in the comment section that maybe a parent survey could go out again based on this presentation.
Absolutely. I took note of that, and I could try to even send it out tomorrow.
Okay. All right. So all in favor?
I'd like to, well, I'm sorry. I'd just like to say I appreciate all of the comments and the perspectives from the administration, the parents, and the teachers. And the hybrid model, I think, is the best model to start with because it really addresses all of our needs right now and gives us the options. So we would be, we definitely are going to have remote learners out there because that's something that some have chosen or are required to do by, I don't want to say it's a choice if you have to stay home for remote learning, but I'm very proud that we as a state of Massachusetts have said that we're going to provide education for people at home or in person. If it says we have to change it, then we can change it. So I think it's responsible for us to vote for this hybrid model now.
Any further comments? So again, I'd like to make a motion to approve the hybrid model for the start of the school year in September.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, first and
Aye.
second.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, Mr. Bodwell.
Thank you.
Do we also have to vote on the calendar, Mrs. Sullivan?
That was part of the initial policy in the beginning, that the
Oh, okay.
calendar was a piece of the pandemic issues.
Okay, sorry.
If you'd like to have a separate vote so that it's clear in the district, that's, I would agree with that.
Why don't we? I think it would
Sure,
be easy
for
to
clarity.
do.
Mr. Bodwell, would you be able to go back to the slide for the calendar
I
for the
certainly
10
can.
days? And then I can be very specific with the wording of the motion.
Trying, let's see. Oh, there we go. Bear with me.
No worries.
Let's see.
Would it be timeline? No?
There we
Oh, there we go. So I would like to make a motion to approve the proposed school calendar for the 2021 under the revision based on the 10 days for the professional development for teachers, which would begin on August 31st as day one, consecutively through September 15th, for September 1st, September 2nd, September 3rd, September 8th, September 9th, September 10th, September 11th, September 14th, and September 15th. Development days for the teachers with the first day of school on Wednesday, September 16th. Could I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Oh, may I just
I
add,
just
sorry,
have-
Thursday, September 17th and Friday, September 18th would be for pre-K and kindergarten start. I apologize for that. All in favor?
I just want to make one comment before we, that we do have another school committee meeting on August 24th and also on September 14th. So we will have the
Yes.
opportunity to to review everything again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Excellent. All right. Down. Hold on. So, as Mrs. Smith stated, our next scheduled meeting will be Monday, August 24th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. at the Middle Senior High School Learning Commons. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Moved.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you to
you.
all those asked questions. I do appreciate it.